Hello, everybody. Welcome to the fall selection of Chai Chai's exclusive tea club. This is fall 2022, and we've prepared a very exciting selection of teas. I want to introduce to you and explain. Well, first of all, I want to explain that we always choose teas according to the season. Fall is a very changing season as we move from summer to winter, and so there's some days, especially where we live here in Spain. There are some days that are still quite warm. Actually, right now, this week, here now in November, late November, it's just starting to get cold. So there are days that we are in the mood for more cooling teas, more fresh, more greenish teas. And then, of course, weather changes, it becomes more windy, cold, rainy, and we're in the mood for maybe some darker teas as we move towards the winter. So in this selection, I've chosen mostly darker teas with really just one exception. So the first tea I want to talk about. We tilted it a little too much. It's a Darjeeling. It's a Darjeeling oolong. So Darjeeling is, if you know already Darjeeling, you might know Darjeeling for being either first flush Darjeeling, which is often sold as the champagne of teas. And then there's second flush Darjeeling, which comes a little bit later in the spring, early summer. And it's so where the first flush is very green and floral and very fresh and hoppy. The second flush becomes more fruity. And these are the two famous Darjeeling teas, what made Darjeeling famous. But in recent years, Darjeeling producers have been experimenting more and more with producing different types of tea and expanding their horizons and their offer. Over the years at Chai Chai, we've had some Darjeeling white teas that we've found interesting. Very rarely a green tea we've found interesting, and very rarely an oolong. And this is one of those oolongs that we thought is worth while to show you guys and here in the club. First of all, it's interesting because we're used to oolong is obviously well, all tea comes from China, and oolong is China. We associate it normally with Chinese tea and with Taiwanese tea. So to find interesting oolong from another country is always interesting, especially for me. If people ask me what's my favorite tea category, and I say if I'm on a desert island, I'll always choose oolong because it offers me the widest range of possibilities. Right, oolong is the category that is in between green and red, or what in the West we mistakenly call black tea. So it's everything in between. The lightly oxidized, just lightly oxidized oolongs fall closer to green tea, whereas the more heavily oxidized fall closer to red tea. And then there's the whole spectrum of roasted oolong teas, which are fantastic. So I love oolong tea, and I found it really interesting to find this one, which actually I'm going to start preparing because it always feels good to talk while drinking tea. I'm going to brew this tea in a shiboridashi, which is just a nice vessel for everyday drinking and for the informality of conversation. I definitely like it. It's also nice because it has a nice wide opening, so you can see the leaves as they unfold. It also gives space for the leaves to unfold. I think I just put a little bit too much tea there. So the first rule of tea preparation is not to talk as you're making tea, because then you do things like that. You pour way too much tea, but it's okay. I've removed some. So you basically want to just put 3 or 4 grams, and you want to preheat your vessel. And this tea, oolong tea, normally you can brew at 100 degrees. Personally, I think that this Darjeeling oolong benefits from just a little bit cooler, like a 95, especially especially if you like your teas to be on the sweet side. Uh, Thing is, Darjeeling is famous for its muscatel notes, especially in what they call muscatel notes. I mean, you might find it, to me, it's more like grape. But Darjeeling is famous for those notes and for the floral notes, but also for a very certain astringency and bitterness, especially in the first flush. And the second flush is more fruity with just a little bit of bitterness. And I think you'll find that this oolong tea is very different from both in that it doesn't have the astringency or bitterness. It's really just smooth, a really smooth tea, very round and kind of sweet. And you will find, you'll clearly notice that the processing is different from other Darjeelings you've had for being an oolong. But it will still remind you of Darjeeling tea, which I think it should. If it's from Darjeeling, you want to notice the terroir. Otherwise, kind of what's the point? If it just seems like a copy of a Chinese tea or a Taiwanese tea or any other tea, I personally prefer that it has its own character. And here, I think Darjeeling has such a strong character that there's no way of removing this character. And that's really why I chose it for this selection, because you'll find a tea that's clearly a Darjeeling but not. And if you like oolong tea as I do, you'll never find an oolong tea like this from a place like China or Taiwan. So this one comes from Liza Hill, which is a branch of the Rishehat plantation. It's one of the older, Rishehat is one of the older plantations. The Rishehat's name is cool. It translates as home of the holy sages. And you'll find more fall aroma actually, which is funny because it's a second flush tea. It's from early summer. But to me, it evokes fall notes of like apple cider and baked eggplant. And decomposting leaves quite a bit too. So yeah, as I said, this is a tea. The Darjeeling is a tea that was that began to be cultivated in India by the British in the mid 19th century, and they were always making what in England they sell as black tea, which in Chai Chai we don't call it black tea. First of all, black tea is really red tea, but anyway, we don't call it red tea or black tea to these Darjeeling teas because the first flush is very green. It's not very oxidized, and if the definition of Hongcha or red tea or oxidized tea is that it's oxidized, then a first flush Darjeeling probably shouldn't be called black tea or red tea. So we just have a category called Himalaya tea, which would include Nepalese teas and Darjeeling teas and teas from Sikkim, teas that to me don't really fit into the category and either category, and also within themselves they differ very much if it's first flush from early spring or if it's second flush or if it's from the fall season. Anyway, this is a very, very nice tea on a day like today. It's cold and windy and damp. In general, I think on days like that, you want a tea that you brew with hotter temperature water. It's more comforting and it's more appetizing and probably also better for what your body really needs. And I hope you really enjoy this tea. If you're a member, you're watching this video, then I think you'll notice everything I said. And if you're not a member, hopefully this will inspire you to want to join and receive every 3 months a selection of really special teas. So I'll continue talking about these teas. This one's very interesting too. Oh, they're all very interesting. This is a green tea, very big long leaves. It's a wild green tea, and like Darjeeling, these plantations were originally dating back to the mid 19th century, to the 1850s. But this has a very different background. It comes from Georgia. Not Georgia on my mind, Atlanta, Georgia, but Georgia, European Georgia, Gruznia, near Russia. Gruznia was a very big tea producer in the late 1800s. Russia's always had a big tea culture, and the surrounding countries as well. And they were drinking lots of tea. They were drinking lots of Georgian tea. Georgia tea had a nice name for itself, but Georgia fell on very hard times, as did most of the ex-Soviet Union. And the tea plantations were abandoned, burnt. This one, for example, this particular, now it's wild tea, but originally it was a plantation and it got burned. And out of those ashes sprung new tea trees, and I really find, of course, that story to be beautiful. First of all, I love wild tea. Second of all, that the land was destroyed, and it has a really sad recent history. But out of that, the new growth just happens on its own, and some wonderful tea lovers are recovering that tea culture and sharing with us what they have. And I'm amazed by it. Though I love the wild Georgian teas that I'm tasting, and this green tea is really, really, really surprising. Mostly, I like their what they call black teas. Their red teas, the oxidized teas. I find very sweet, and you can't overbrew them. They're just really fantastic. But this green tea is really, really, really special. It's very delicate. It's very light and sweet, but very fresh and with a real good feeling. Like I just feel like good, like vitamin good drinking it. And I attribute that just to it's clean. It's really in a remote place. Apparently the terroir must be really great too, because of the way the heat and the hot air and the cold air from the north, and exactly where it's located between waters to the lake, and it's just it must be a perfect situation for the tea trees, because they're bright. The flavor is very bright. And I haven't been there yet. I know people who've been in the region, and I've seen photos, and it's really beautiful. And from these plantations, you actually see the snow-capped mountains of the Great and Small Caucasus. So that humid, it's really that humid air from the sea and the fresh wind from the mountains coming. That these trees are really growing in a great place. I'm just going to put this aside for a second and just show you that this type of tea with these beautiful long leaves is fantastic. Just put a few leaves in a bowl. This tea is leaves in a bowl is a great way to make tea without geeking out on or worrying even about tea preparation, like what teapot should I use, or how much time should I use, how much time should steep. You really just put a couple of leaves. This is more than enough. Add the water, and this is a very meditative way to drink tea that evokes the kind of the legend of how tea was discovered, when they say that a leaf just fell into the cauldron of Emperor Shennong's hot water, and he discovered this marvelous drink and proclaimed it the the, the queen of all plants, the empress of all plants in the plant kingdom. But yeah, you just put the hot water and you can just sit. It's a great way to make tea in the morning, and if you have a meditation practice, I like to meditate with tea, and I think that bowl tea is the way to do it. Like Kung Fu tea and other tea brewing, we want to put our attention fully there, and there's it's like meditation applied. So you need to practice. So we practice in Kung Fu. You practice a lot, but your mind is there in the beginning, and this is also there's an objective. The objective is to make the finest cup of tea possible. So where there's an aim, there's intention, and bowl tea is about it's the opposite, and it's great to cultivate both things. This is just acceptance. This is just your communication, your relationship with tea, or with yourself. It's just a beautiful way of drinking tea. And so this was the green option that I put for those days that are nice and really nice and sunny and feeling bright energy, and you in the fall, that those days that bring you there, or that you just want to evoke, or maybe you just like green tea. But in general, for me, as the year gets as we move into winter and colder weather, green tea becomes less and less desirable for my body, but this tea, it will be nice, really nice right now. Its freshness will remind you of warm days in spring, and also there are some days that you just will want a nice green tea. So I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you can brew it like this. All you need is a bowl. Yeah, it's just a bowl, a couple of leaves, hot water, and it's great. You can't do this with every tea. You can't do this with every tea, because some teas overbrew. Also, the leaves, nice long leaves, are better than small leaves. Nice long leaves, when they hydrate, they gain weight and they fall to the bottom of the cup, and they're not coming into your mouth. Whereas little broken leaves and small leaves float and get in your mouth and make it, can be annoying for some people. I would understand that some people might find it not to be such a great brewing method. It's not actually a brewing method, but some people might not find it a great way of drinking tea. If they're getting leaves in their mouth, it might disturb them, and that's not the point. The point is just to relax and enjoy your tea. So, yeah, so bigger leaves are great. Anyway, with this tea, you're going to find that. It's just a very fresh, sweet, lively tea that reminds me of like the early spring, very early spring Chinese green teas, like a nice pilochun. Which has a totally different appearance, right? It's such a small pilochun with a small curly leaf, yeah. But that delicateness, it's there. Okay. Talk about this amazing tea. This is Hongcha, what we call red tea, red tea, which the Chinese call red tea, and we call mistakenly black tea in the West. This tea, to me, was like my revelation as far as Hongcha goes this year. This was the year I discovered this tea, and I'm blown away by it. It's from Zanping. So Zanping is famous for their oolong. You might have had it already. It's oolong that comes pressed in these little 8-gram squares, lightly pressed, and is a Shuixian varietal. So Zanping, that's what we associate with the word Zanping, that oolong. And this was a revelation, as I said, because first of all, it's Hongcha from Zanping, and second of all, it's loose leaf, and third of all, it's wild. So this producer took the wild tea and chose to oxidize it and make this amazing special tea, which it just it blows me away. It's so fruity, and Sri Shen is the varietal, so that translates as water sprite or water nymph or narcissus. You'll find different names for this, and it's a widespread varietal in Fujian province. We at Chai Chai, we've offered it many times, and we've offered the Zanping little brick, little square, even recently, but also the oolong, like the more oxidized wheat, there's lots of Shui Shen, and so we all kind of know Shui Shen. If you've been drinking tea for a while, you've been coming to Chai Chai at least, then you've had the opportunity over these almost 20 years to try many different Shui Shens. But none of them are like this. We've never offered a Hongcha Shui Shen, and never offered a wild Shui Shen. So for me, like I said, it was a revelation. It's a tea that can be done kung fu. It's a tea that can be done as leaves in a bowl. It's amazing. It's amazing, and it's sweet. It's like molasses. It's just really, really lovely, and I'm excited for you to discover it because, like I said, it was my biggest discovery this year in Hongcha. So our last tea we're gonna talk about here for the club. I mean, there's this tea is I'll also talk about it briefly, but the basic selection was these 4 teas. This tea was the bonus selection for the 150 subscription. But both of these last ones are oolongs. You can see that this one over here, the leaf is bigger. So this one over here is Chilan, rare orchid, and this one over here is Meizan, a plum blossom. These teas come packed in individual kung fu size packets. So Wu Yi tea was evolved along with kung fu tea brewing. So the best way to brew is going to be in a kung fu pot with kung fu cups. And I actually, in the next video, I'm going to do this in Spanish, and I'm really in the mood to drink this tea. But I just want to basically talk a little bit about Wu Yi. Wu Yi is a protected national park. It's protected by UNESCO. It's a cultural heritage site, and it's the birthplace of oolong tea. And kung fu is a brewing method that evolved in this region for oolong tea. And really, like, master oolong tea, like the best Wu Yi tea, should definitely be done kung fu. And I encourage you to do that if you have a kung fu pot. If not, it's okay. You can use a shiwari dashi, and brew it like that. But what's the difference, right? I mean, here you're going to use about 3 or 4 grams, and there's more water. And here you're going to put the entire contents, right, the 6 grams, in a little pot with a little bit of water, and the steeping will be very short. So it's like the alchemy of tea preparation. The finest tea will be made with that short steeping, and short steeping with the right amount of leaves, which is more leaves. You want to put more leaves. And you want to make tea all afternoon with this little thing. So that's the best way to brew those teas if you can. And like I said, in the video I do in Spanish now to talk about these, I'll brew this tea, and show you a little bit more about the brewing. So Wu Oolong is a charcoal roasted. That's like its main. Well, it has like two main things that stand out. One is its charcoal roast, and another is the terroir is so rocky. So once you're drinking the tea and you get beyond the roast, so the roast is the last thing that's done when making the tea. The last thing done when making the tea is the first thing we're going to notice when we're drinking the tea. So the first notes we're going to notice are the roast. But as we keep drinking and we go beyond the roast, we're going to really discover the leaf and the varietal, and then its processing, and then ultimately we're going to notice the terroir and what's Wu Yi tea is called yancha. Yancha means rock tea or cliff tea, because Wu Yi is a national park that's all volcanic rock, and the tea grows in between these mountains. If it's Zhongyan, if it's the real tea from the inner park, it grows amongst these mountains, and that terroir is really special because those rocks are holding heat during the day. They're volcanic. They're holding heat. They're very hot, and at night they release that heat. So the tea that grows among in those cliffs, in those valleys, have a very special terroir. First of all, for the rocky soil, but then also because of this temperature constants. So it's a unique condition for tea growing, and for me, it's the best oolong is Wu Yi Oolong. So yeah, these are two different varietals. A rare orchid is not Chilan. It's not originally a Wu Yi varietal. It was brought there from another Fujian area, from Pingge County in South Fujian. But you'll notice it's very nutty, right? Anytime there's a roast, you'll evoke nuts. In this case, I find it to be different in their nuttiness, whereas the Chilan is more like pecans. I think in the Meizan, you're gonna notice more like chestnuts. And I'm not really sure what else to say about this one. Well, what I want to say is that when you're a club member, what we do first is we have you receive the tea, and then we have a Zoom conference so you receive the tea and you have some time to try it, and then we meet on Zoom, and you can ask me all your questions about these teas. So what I'm doing with these YouTube videos really is for the people who couldn't attend the Zoom session, give them a place to just hear a little bit about the teas. Of course, I give them a PDF with some basic information on the teas, but in this video we complement that information. But in the live Zoom sessions, it's a space for you to ask all the questions that you want to ask about anything related to the teas we're drinking or the preparation, or so it's my a space that where I want to be able to accompany you in your journey discovering teas and enjoying them. So this is just a video for those people who missed that session, and also for those of you who are curious, what is this about, to be able to see a little bit the kind of teas that every season we're doing, and hopefully this encourages you to want to join and try it and receive these teas and keep learning along with us. So I hope you found this video interesting, and I hope you're in the mood for some nice tea now. So thank you, and we'll see you again in winter, and until then, I hope you have a great fall.